Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku fought without fear. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The world was not built equally. Izuku Midoriya had learned this truth at the age of 4, when the doctor pointed to an extra joint in his pinky toe and effectively declared his existence void. But it wasn't until he was 14, staring at the charred, mocking pages of his notebook floating in a koi pond, that he understood the corollary to that truth. The world does not care if you are afraid. Fear was the currency of the weak. It was the transaction fee for living in a society dominated by the strong. You paid your fear to the bullies, to the villains, to the uncertainties of the future, hoping it would buy you safety. Izuku stood by the pond, watching the fish nibble at the ink of his life's work. Hero Analysis for the Future, Volume 13. Take a swan dive off the roof, Katsuki Bakugo had said, his palms popping with small, threatening explosions. Maybe you'll have a quirk in the next life. Usually, Izuku would be shaking. Usually, his knees would be knocking together, the sound of his heart drowning out the cicadas buzzing in the summer heat. But as he fished the notebook out of the water, watching the waterlogs slide off the burned paper, something in his chest felt tight. Not with panic, but with a strange, suffocating pressure, like a rubber band pulled until it lost its elasticity. He didn't cry. That was the first difference. He walked home, his uniform collar feeling like a noose. He took the shortcut under the bridge. The shadows were cool, a reprieve from the oppressive sun. He opened the notebook. The ink was running, but legible. He could still read his notes on Kamiri Woods. Effective range. Binding strength. Weakness to fire. There was a wet, squelching sound behind him. Izuku turned. He didn't scream. He didn't have time. A mass of sentient sewage rose from the manhole cover, eyes bulging with manic glee. A medium-sized invisibility cloak, the villain hissed, the voice sounding like bubbles popping in oil. You'll do perfectly. The sludge lunged. It hit him like a wall of concrete. The fluid forced its way into his mouth, his nose. It burned. It tasted of oil, rot, and city grime. Izuku clawed at the liquid, his fingers slipping uselessly through the viscosity. I'm going to die, Izuku thought. The thought wasn't a panic-stricken scream. It was a cold, hard piece of data. Oxygen deprivation. Respiratory failure. Estimated time to unconsciousness, 30 seconds. Death, 3 minutes. Fear tried to rise. It tried to make him thrash, to waste the little oxygen he had left in his blood. But as his vision began to spot with black, a strange clarity washed over him. Panic required energy. Fear required a future to lose. If he was dying, fear was inefficient. Don't struggle, his mind whispered, detaching from the terror. Analyze. Is there a solid point? No. Is there a weakness? The eyes. His hand moved. Not a frantic flail, but a directed strike. He dug his fingers into the villain's bulging eye. Arg! You little brat! The villain roared, the fluid resealing slightly in pain. It wasn't enough to escape, but it bought him a breath. One gasp of air before the sludge slammed back over his face. But that one breath was enough to hear the manhole cover rattle again. Have no fear, the voice boomed, vibrating through the tunnel walls, through the sludge, through Izuku's bones. For I am here. A shockwave of air pressure, sharp and violent, tore the villain apart. The sludge scattered like rain against the concrete walls. Izuku hit the ground coughing, his lungs heaving as they remembered how to work. He looked up, vision blurry. Standing there, bathed in the dim light of the underpass, was the mountain of muscle, the smile that defied reality. All might. Izuku didn't faint. He didn't squeal. He stared. He stared at the symbol of peace, cataloging the way the hero's chest heaved, the slight tension in his posture. Apologies, young man. All Might laughed, gathering the scattered villain into soda bottles with blinding speed. I didn't mean to get you caught up in my justice ing. Are you alright? Izuku stood up. His legs were shaky, but he locked his knees. I'm alive. That you are. Well, I must be off to turn this fellow in. Wait. All Might paused, preparing to jump. Izuku took a step forward. The question. The question that had been burning a hole in his soul since he was 4. Usually, he imagined asking this with tears streaming down his face, begging for validation. But now, standing in the cold damp of the tunnel, having just analyzed his own death, the question felt different. It wasn't a plea. It was an inquiry into the laws of reality. Can I be a hero without a quirk? All Might stopped. The steam coming off his body increased. Without a quirk? I have no power, Izuku said, his voice flat, devoid of the stutter that usually plagued him. I have no strength. But I can think. I can analyze. Can I save people? Or is it impossible? All Might looked at the boy. He saw the dirty uniform, the notebook clutched in a white-knuckled grip, the eyes that were too wide, too intense. Pro-heroes are always risking their lives, All Might said, his voice losing some of its boom. Some villains just can't be beaten without powers. So honestly? No. I cannot tell you that you can become a hero without a quirk. The words hung in the air. If you want to help people, become a police officer. They get a lot of flack, but it's a fine profession. All Might crouched and launched himself into the sky, the sonic boom rattling Izuku's teeth. Izuku stood alone in the silence. He expected to cry. He waited for the tears. He waited for the heartbreak. But it didn't come. Instead, the pressure in his chest snapped. The rubber band broke. No. The word echoed in his mind. No. You're wrong. Izuku looked at his hands. They were trembling, but he forced them still. All Might had said no. The world had said no. Biology had said no. Fear is what stops people, Izuku thought, his mind racing at a speed that made him dizzy. Fear of death. Fear of pain. Fear of failure. That's why you need power. To mitigate the fear. But what if I just didn't care? If the result was saving a life, did it matter if he broke? Did it matter if he died? He started walking. He didn't go home. He just walked, his mind disassembling the concept of heroism and rebuilding it into something colder, something sharper. He smelled the smoke before he saw it. The Tatooine shopping district was in chaos. Sirens wailed, cutting through the thick, black plumes choking the sky. The crowd was a wall of noise, screams, gasps, the chatter of onlookers treating disaster like a spectator sport. Izuku pushed through the bodies. He moved like a ghost, slipping between gaps in the crowd until he reached the police tape. The scene was hell. Flames licked the sides of the buildings, shattering windows. In the center of the inferno, the sludge villain had reassembled, larger and more volatile than before. Explosions rocked the street, keeping the heroes at bay. I can't get close. Death Arms yelled, shielding his face. The heat is too intense. My wood will catch fire. Kamui shouted. We have to wait for someone with a suitable quirk. Izuku stood at the tape, his green eyes reflecting the orange glow. They were waiting. They were hesitating. They were afraid. Inefficient, Izuku's mind supplied. They are prioritizing their own safety over the hostage. They are waiting for a perfect solution while the variable, the victim, deteriorates. He looked into the fire. Through the smoke and the sludge he saw a face, Katsuki Bakugo, the boy who had told him to kill himself just hours ago. Bakugo was thrashing, his explosions wild and uncontrolled, only feeding the fire. But it was his eyes that caught Izuku. Bakugo wasn't angry. He was terrified. For the first time in his life, Izuku saw Katsuki Bakugo not as a predator, but as prey. He saw a frightened animal caught in a trap, suffocating, dying, and Izuku felt nothing. No fear. No panic. No hesitation. The barrier in his mind that usually screamed danger. Stop. Had been incinerated by All Might's rejection. If he couldn't be a hero, he had nothing to lose, and a man with nothing to lose has no reason to hesitate. Izuku ducked under the tape. Hey! Kid! Get back here! A hero shouted. Izuku didn't hear him. The world narrowed down to a tunnel. The villain. The victim. The geometry of the fight. He ran. He didn't sprint blindly. He moved with terrifying purpose. He analyzed the villain's movements. The sludge was favoring its right side, protecting its eyes. The explosions were creating pockets of air. Target the eyes. Disrupt the fluid dynamics. Create an opening. Izuku swung his backpack off his shoulder. He didn't just throw it, he calculated the arc. As he closed the distance, the heat searing his eyebrows, he hurled the bag. It spun through the air, the heavy textbooks inside turning it into a projectile. Thwack! The corner of the bag slammed into the villain's exposed eye. Arg! The villain flinched, his grip loosening for a fraction of a second. That was all Izuku needed. He slid into the fire, ignoring the heat blistering his skin. He reached into the sludge, not blindly, but hunting for the solid mass of Bakugo's collar. He found it. He dug his heels into the asphalt. Deku? Bakugo choked out, his voice wet and small. What the hell? Izuku didn't scream, "I'm here to save you." He didn't cry out, "Kaken." He looked Bakugo dead in the eye, his face a mask of eerily calm determination. "Stop moving," Izuku said, his voice cutting through the roar of the fire. "You're making it harder to extract you." "What? Shut up and breathe." Izuku clawed at the sludge. The villain recovered, looking down with pure hatred. "You again!" A massive tendril of sludge raised up, hardened like a whip, ready to crush Izuku into paste. Izuku saw the shadow. He calculated the trajectory. He knew he couldn't dodge it. "It will break my ribs," Izuku analyzed. "If I twist left, I can protect my spine. I will still have function in my arms." He didn't flinch. He didn't close his eyes. He braced himself to take the hit, to sacrifice his body to keep his grip on Bakugo. The blow never landed. There was a blur of movement, a cough of blood, and then the wind pressure returned. All Might appeared, steam pouring off him, blocking the strike with his own body. "I really empathetic," All Might growled, but he wasn't smiling. He was grim. "I told you what makes a hero, and then I stood by and watched a civilian do my job." All Might grabbed both boys. Detroit. Smash! The punch changed the weather. The updraft put out the fire. The rain began to fall. When they landed, the crowd went silent. Izuku sat on the pavement. He was burned. His uniform was in tatters. His throat felt like sandpaper. But his pulse was steady. The heroes descended. "Are you insane?" Death Arms got in Izuku's face. "You could have gotten yourself killed. You have no quirk. You were a liability." Kamui Woods nodded. "That was reckless and stupid." Meanwhile, the other heroes were praising Bakugo. "Great quirk. So brave. You held out so long." Izuku stood up. His legs didn't shake. He looked at Death Arms. The hero stopped yelling, unsettled by the boy's eyes. They weren't the eyes of a scolded child. They were the eyes of a soldier evaluating a subordinate. "Liability?" Izuku asked, his voice quiet but carrying. "Yes. You." "The villain had him for 5 minutes, Izuku stated, pointing at Bakugo. "You stood there. You watched. You calculated that your safety was more important than his survival. I calculated that my life was worth less than his chance of living. I acted. You watched." He picked up his charred backpack. "If I'm a liability for acting," Izuku said, turning his back on the pros, "then what are you for watching?" He walked away. The crowd parted for him, unnerved. Nobody tried to stop him. The sun was setting, casting long, bruised shadows across the street. Izuku walked home, his mind already dissecting the encounter. I need to be stronger. Speed was insufficient. Grip strength was lacking. If All Might hadn't arrived, failure was 98% certain. DKU. Izuku stopped. He didn't turn around immediately. He checked his surroundings. No threats. Just Bakugo running up behind him, panting, looking furious and confused. "I didn't ask for your help," Bakugo yelled, his shoulders hunched. "I was fine. I didn't need a quirkless loser like you looking down on me. You think you're better than me?" "Huh." Izuku turned slowly. Usually, he would apologize. Usually, he would stutter, "No, Kaken, I just wanted to help." Izuku looked at Bakugo's trembling hands. The residual fear masked as anger. "You were dying," Izuku said calmly. "I wasn't. You were suffocating. Your eyes were rolling back. Your explosions were panic responses, not tactical attacks." Izuku shifted his backpack. I don't think I'm better than you, Kaken, but today, I was the only one who moved. Dealing with that fact is your problem, not mine. Izuku turned and kept walking. Bakugo stood there, stunned into silence, watching the pebble he had kicked for 10 years walk away like a mountain. Izuku rounded the corner, and the wind picked up. I am here! All Might slid out from a side street, striking a pose, before violently coughing up a spray of blood and deflating into his skeletal form. Young man! All Might wheezed, wiping his mouth. All Might, Izuku nodded, unfazed by the transformation. He had already deduced the time limit based on the earlier encounter. You should be at the hospital. Your respiratory system is compromised. Yes. But I had to catch you. All Might looked at the boy. The scary, intense boy. I have a correction to make. Izuku waited. Earlier, I told you that you couldn't be a hero. I was judging you based on the standard definition. Power. Quirks. All Might stepped closer. But at that fire, you were the only one. Top heroes looked away. I looked away. But you moved. All Might clutched his chest. There are stories about every top hero. Their origins. And they all have one thing in common. Before they were great, before they were ready, their bodies moved on their own. Izuku stared. The words landed, but he didn't weep. He absorbed them. You did that today. You timid quirkless, you acted without fear. I was afraid, Izuku corrected softly. I just decided it didn't matter. All Might paused, struck by the phrasing. Right. Well, young man. You have proved me wrong. You can become a hero. Izuku clenched his fists at his sides. He didn't fall to his knees. He didn't cry. He looked All Might in the eyes, a fire burning in his own green irises that was far colder and more dangerous than the one in the city. Tell me how, Izuku said. All Might blinked. Straight to business, eh? Very well. I have a secret to tell you. My quirk. All Might explained it. One for all. The torch passed down through generations. The crystallization of power. I am looking for a successor, All Might finished, spreading his skeletal arms. And I believe I have found him. I want you to inherit my power. Izuku looked at his hands. The power to save everyone. The power to break the logic of the world. The vessel needs to be prepared, Izuku said, his mind already running the calculations. If I take it now, my limbs will explode. I have no muscle mass. All Might's sweat dropped. Yes. Exactly. You catch on quick. We'll need to train your body too. I accept, Izuku interrupted. I will do whatever is necessary. Pain is irrelevant. Time is the only constraint. When do we start? All Might smiled, but there was a shiver running down his spine. The boy was eager. Perhaps too eager. Tomorrow, All Might said. At Dagoba Municipal Beach Park. The next 10 months were not a montage of inspiring music and sunsets. They were a systematic dismantling of Izuku Midoriya's limits. Dagoba Beach was a graveyard of trash. Fridges, tires, rusted cars. It was a monument to human neglect. This is the American Dream Plan. All Might announced, handing Izuku a stack of papers. It's designed to optimize muscle growth and endurance relative to my BMI, Izuku finished, flipping through the pages. I see. It's efficient. But it accounts for rest days. Muscles need rest to grow, young Midoriya. Villains don't take rest days, Izuku muttered. He began. Izuku attacked the trash like it was a personal enemy. He didn't just drag tires. He sprinted with them until his lungs burned like they were filled with acid. He lifted debris until his palms bled, the calluses tearing and reforming thicker overnight. He stopped mumbling nervously. His muttering became a low, constant stream of self-correction. Lift with the legs. Engage the core. Grips slipping, readjust. Too slow. Do it again. 1 month in, All Might found Izuku collapsing in the sand, vomiting from exertion. Young Midoriya. Take it easy. You're pushing past the safety limits. Izuku wiped his mouth, his eyes bloodshot. The safety limits are for people who want to preserve their bodies for a long life. I need a body that can hold one for all now. You can't be a hero if you're dead before you start. I won't die, Izuku said, standing up on shaking legs. My mind won't let me. He grabbed the rope attached to a rusted truck block. He pulled. As the months passed, the change was terrifying. Izuku didn't just bulk up, he hardened. The baby fat melted away, replaced by corded, dense muscle. His posture changed. He walked with a predator's economy of motion. At school, he was a ghost. Bakugo tried to provoke him. He would slam his hand on Izuku's desk, sparking explosions. Ignoring me, Deku? Izuku would look up from his advanced physics textbook, his eyes dull. I'm studying, Bakugo. Your volume is unnecessary. He didn't flinch at the explosions anymore. He didn't react. It drove Bakugo insane. It's hard to bully a stone. 6 months in, Izuku was sparring with All Might, in his weak form. All Might threw a punch. Izuku didn't dodge backward. He stepped in. He took the hit to his shoulder to grab All Might's arm and attempt to throw. You have to protect yourself. All Might yelled, shaking him off. Why? Izuku asked, panting. If I take the hit, I get inside your guard. I can end the fight faster. A broken shoulder is an acceptable trade for a capture. All Might stared at him. Midoriya, fear keeps us alive. It tells us when we are outmatched. You are losing that signal. Fear is hesitation, Izuku recited. Hesitation kills the victim. We have work to do on your mindset, All Might sighed. But your body is ready. The morning of the entrance exam, the sun rose over a pristine beach. The trash was gone. Every scrap, every bolt, every tire. The sand was white and smooth, save for the footprints of the boy standing at the water's edge. Izuku stood atop a pile of trash he had consolidated into a pyramid. He was shirtless, screaming at the ocean. Not a scream of triumph, but a scream of release. A venting of the pressure valve. All Might arrived in his buff form. Oh my goodness! He looked at the beach. He looked at Izuku. The boy was ripped. He looked like a statue carved from determination and scar tissue. You finished early. And you moved even the parts one said were impossible. Izuku jumped down. He landed silently in the sand. I'm ready. All Might plucked a hair from his head. The mood shifted. I have watched you for 10 months. You have the heart of a lion, young Midoriya. Though sometimes I worry it is a hungry lion, but you have earned this. He held out the hair. Eat this. Izuku didn't make a face. He didn't ask if it was a joke. He took the hair. Genetic material transfer, his mind catalogued. Ingestion required. He swallowed it dry. Done, Izuku said. Now what? Now? All Might laughed nervously. Now you go to UA and show them that you are here. The gates of UA High School towered over the students. Izuku walked toward them. He wore his middle school uniform, but it fit differently now. His shoulders filled it out. His stride was long. He saw other students. He saw a girl with brown hair trip over her own feet. Center of gravity shifted, Izuku noted. She's nervous. He stepped forward, his hand shooting out to catch her by the backpack strap before she hit the concrete. He hauled her upright with effortless strength. Whoa! She blinked, blushing. Thanks. I'm so nervous, I guess I tripped. Izuku looked at her. Nerves impair motor function. Deep breaths. Oxygenate your blood. Right. She smiled brightly. I'm Uraraka. Good luck. She ran off. Izuku watched her go. Telekinesis? Zero gravity pads on fingertips. Interesting. Get out of my way, Deku. Bakugo walked past him, shouldering him roughly. Izuku didn't stumble. He barely moved. He watched Bakugo walk ahead. Your gait is uneven, Kaken, Izuku thought. You're tense. You're worried I'll actually do well. Izuku walked into the orientation hall. Present Mike yelled. Izuku took notes. He didn't cheer. He memorized the point values. Villain bots. 1, 2, and 3 points. 0 pointers are obstacles. Avoidance recommended. Test parameters. Urban combat. High mobility required. Destruction power required. He looked at his hand. He hadn't tested one for all yet. All Might said he could handle it, but he had no calibration. If I use it at 100%, I will break my limb. If I break my limb, I lose mobility. Conclusion: do not use the quirk unless absolutely necessary. Use the environment. Use weapons. The written exam was trivial. He had memorized the textbooks years ago. Then came the practical. Izuku stood outside Battle Center B. He wore a simple green tracksuit. No flash. No pads. He looked around. The other examinees were stretching, sweating, praying. Izuku closed his eyes. He visualized the city. He visualized the robots. The gates began to open. And start. Present Mike screamed from the tower. What are you waiting for? There are no countdowns in real battles. While the other students processed the shout, Izuku was already a blur of green motion. He was the first one through the gate. He sprinted down the main street. A one-pointer, a rolling drone, shot out from an alley. Target lock. Speed moderate. Izuku didn't stop. He spotted a loose length of steel pipe from a construction site prop. He grabbed it without breaking stride. As the robot lunged, Izuku slid on his knees, ducking under the mechanical arm. He swung the pipe with all the torque of his new body. Clang! He jammed the pipe into the robot's wheel joint. The robot screeched, tripped, and smashed into a wall, deactivating. 1, Izuku counted softly. He kept running. A three-pointer appeared. Massive. Missiles loaded. Izuku couldn't fight that with a pipe. He scanned the area. He saw another student, a boy with a laser navel, blast a robot. Debris flew. Izuku grabbed a jagged piece of metal plating from the wreckage. Improvised shield. He ran toward the three-pointer. The robot fired a rubber bullet. Izuku deflected it with the plate, the impact jarring his arm, but he didn't stop. He used the robot's leg as a ladder, scrambling up the chassis. The robot couldn't reach its own back. Izuku reached the neck cables. He didn't have super strength active, but he had grip strength born from dragging trucks through sand. He ripped the cables out with a primal grunt. The robot powered down. 4. He moved like a locust. He didn't waste time on flashy moves. He dismantled. He tripped. He baited robots into shooting each other. In the observation room, the teachers watched the screens. Who is that kid in the green? Midnight asked, tilting her head. He has no quirk registration on his file, but he's fighting like a commando. Movement efficiency is off the charts, Snipe noted. He's not using power. He's using pure aggression and physics. Aizawa Shota watched the screen, his eyes narrowed. He's not hesitating. Not even for a microsecond. It's unnatural. Time to release the big one, the principal giggled. Back in the city, the ground shook. Buildings crumbled. Dust choked the air. The zero-pointer rose above the skyline, a mechanical god of destruction. Its shadow swallowed the street. The other students turned and ran. Run! It's huge! Don't fight it! It's worth 0 points. Izuku stopped. He wiped dust from his goggles. Logic dictates retreat. There is no point value. Survival is priority. He turned to leave. Then he heard it. Ow! A small voice. Under the rubble. Izuku looked back. The girl from the entrance, Uraraka, was pinned under debris. The zero-pointer was looming over her, its massive tread crushing the pavement as it advanced. The other students were fleeing. They were afraid. Izuku felt that cold switch flip in his brain again. She will die. I have power. I have not tested it. I will break. Acceptable. Izuku turned around. He bent his knees. He felt the ember of one for all in his stomach. He didn't try to control it. He didn't try to spread it out. He just ignited it. Red veins glowed on his legs. His shoes creaked under the pressure. Boom! He launched himself. The concrete beneath him shattered into a crater. The wind screamed in his ears. He wasn't flying. He was being fired like a cannonball. He soared past the robot's eye level. He clenched his right fist. He could feel the power tearing at his skin, crying out to be released. Smash! He didn't scream the name of a city. He just screamed the action. His fist connected with the metal faceplate. The impact was deafening. The robot's head didn't just dent, it collapsed inward. The shockwave blew out the windows of the surrounding buildings. The massive machine tipped backward, groaning as its internal systems were liquefied. Izuku hung in the air for a moment, suspended in the dust. Then, the pain hit. His right arm was purple. Broken. Twisted. His legs flailed, broken from the jump. He began to fall. Terminal velocity. No landing strategy. Legs non-functional. Arms non-functional. I'm falling to my death. As the ground rushed up to meet him, Izuku Midoriya didn't scream. He looked at his broken arm, then at the girl safe on the ground. A wide, terrifying smile split his face. I won. Then a slap. Uraraka, floating on a piece of debris, slapped his cheek. He stopped in midair, inches from the pavement. She released her quirk, and he dropped with a wet thud. The buzzer sounded. Time's up. Izuku lay on his back. The pain was blinding. It felt like his bones were glass shards. But he started to laugh. It was a wheezing, dry laugh. The students gathered around, horrified. Is he crazy? He jumped straight at it. Look at his arm. Izuku stared up at the blue sky. He couldn't move. He was broken. But the silence in his head was perfect. He had fought without fear. And he had crushed it. This, Izuku thought as his consciousness faded, is what it means to be a hero. The ceiling was white. Unfamiliar. It smelled of antiseptic and ozone. Izuku Midoriya opened his eyes. His internal clock, honed by 10 months of sleep-deprived scheduling, told him it had been approximately 3 hours since he blacked out. He sat up. Lay back down, you foolish child. The cane struck his shin with surprising force. Izuku didn't flinch, though his nerves registered the sharp impact. He turned his head slowly to see a diminutive old woman in a nurse's outfit glaring at him from a swivel chair. Recovery girl. The youthful heroine. Status report, Izuku said. His voice was raspy, throat dry from the dust of the collapsed robot. Recovery girl blinked, taken aback by the clinical demand. Usually, students woke up crying, asking if they passed, or panicking about the pain. Status report? You destroyed your right arm and both legs, completely comminuted fractures. If I hadn't treated you, you would be looking at months of physical therapy. As it is, I've drained your stamina to accelerate the healing. You should be exhausted. Izuku looked at his right arm. It was bandaged heavily, but he flexed his fingers. They moved. Stiffness in the joints. A dull ache in the humerus. Functional, he muttered. Acceptable. Acceptable? Recovery girl hopped off her chair, her syringe-shaped bun bobbing with indignation. There is nothing acceptable about destroying your body in a simulation. You acted with zero regard for your own safety. That isn't heroism, it's self-destruction. Izuku swung his legs over the side of the bed. His feet touched the cold linoleum. He felt the fatigue she mentioned, a heaviness in his marrow, but he pushed it aside like he pushed aside the fear. Fatigue was just a chemical signal. It could be ignored. The objective was to save the examinee, Izuku stated, meeting her gaze. The zero-pointer was traveling at approximately 5 meters per second. The structural integrity of the debris trapping her was failing. I calculated that I had 3 seconds before she was crushed. My mobility was limited. The only solution with a 100% success rate was a direct kinetic strike to the robot's central processor. And the cost? Recovery girl gestured to his bandages. You broke yourself. A broken arm heals, Izuku said, his voice terrifyingly calm. A crushed skull does not. The trade was efficient. Recovery girl stared at him. She had seen reckless heroes before. All Might was the worst of them. But this was different. All Might smiled to hide the pain. This boy seemed to view the pain as a transaction fee. The door slid open. I am here. All Might squeezed into the room, his suit yellow and bright, though his smile seemed a bit strained as he looked between the matron and the student. To check on the young Midoriya. You're awake. All Might, Izuku nodded. Did she survive, the girl? Yes. Not a scratch on her. Thanks to you. All Might gave a thumbs up, then deflated slightly as Recovery Girl whacked him on the calf with her cane. Don't encourage him, Tashinori. He treats his body like a disposable tool. All Might rubbed his leg, shrinking down into a cough as steam filled the room, reverting to his skeletal form. He looked at Izuku with deep, sunken eyes. She has a point, my boy. That was intense. You didn't hesitate. You told me to show them I was here, Izuku said. I did. You terrified them, All Might corrected gently. The judges, they were impressed by the power, yes. But they were unsettled. A normal person hesitates before jumping to their death, Midoriya. Fear is a natural break. You seem to have cut the brake lines. Izuku looked at his hands. Brakes slow you down. All Might exchanged a worried look with Recovery Girl. This was the problem. The boy had absorbed the lesson of self-sacrifice but missed the lesson of self-preservation. I need to go, Izuku said, standing up. He swayed, the exhaustion hitting him, but he locked his knees. I need to analyze the recoil. I used 100% of the output. If I can dial it down to 5%, I can maintain structural integrity. I need to run calculations. You need to sleep. Recovery Girl snapped. I can sleep when I'm dead, Izuku replied, grabbing his tattered school jacket. He walked out of the infirmary, leaving two pro-heroes in a stunned, heavy silence. The week following the exam was a study in silence. In the Midoriya household, Inko Midoriya was a bundle of nerves. She paced. She floated small objects unconsciously. She cooked enough katsudon to feed an army. Izuku, are you sure you're okay? Your arm, they said you broke it. Izuku sat at the dining table, his good hand writing furiously in a fresh notebook. Quirk analysis. 1 for all beta testing. I'm fine, Mom, he said without looking up. Recovery Girl's quirk is efficient. But did you pass? You said you got 0 points. Combat points, Izuku corrected. The test parameters were flawed if they only accounted for destruction. UA is the premier hero institution. It is illogical to assume they would not account for rescue variables. But what if? Then I applied to Shiketsu. Or Ketsubutsu. The path changes, the destination remains. He wasn't comforting her. He was stating facts. Inko looked at her son's back. It was broader now. Stronger. But it felt like a wall. She missed the days he would cry in her arms. At least then she knew what he was feeling. Now, he was a calm, green sea, and she had no idea what monsters swam beneath the surface. The letter came on a Tuesday. Inko brought it to his room, trembling. Izuku! It's here! Izuku placed his pencil down. He stood up, took the envelope, and sat at his desk. He didn't tear it open frantically. He used the letter opener, slitting the top with surgical precision. He placed the holographic puck on the desk. All Might projected into the room. I am here. As a projection, Izuku watched, his face impassive. Young Midoriya. You destroyed the 0-pointer. A feat of strength that, frankly, scared the janitorial staff. However, your combat score was 0, Inko gasped from the doorway. Izuku didn't blink. But a hero's job is to save people. How could a hero course reject someone who saves others at the cost of himself? The video shifted. It showed Uraraka in the negotiation room, pleading for Izuku to get her points. You have inspired others, young Midoriya. And for that, the screen displayed a scoreboard. Izuku Midoriya villain points 0, rescue points 60, 60 points. You pass with flying colors. Welcome, Izuku Midoriya. This is your hero academia. The hologram faded. Inko burst into tears, rushing to hug him. Oh, Izuku! You did it! You did it! Izuku let her hug him. He patted her back awkwardly. He looked at the blank screen. 60 points. 7th place overall. Acceptable. I have to prepare, he said quietly. The real work starts now. April. The cherry blossoms were falling. Izuku stood before the massive door of Class 1A. It was 6 meters tall. Psychological architecture, he noted. Designed to make students feel small, or to accommodate mutation quirks. Likely both. He checked his watch. 8:15 a.m. 15 minutes early, he slid the door open. The classroom was mostly empty, save for 2 students. Tenya Ito was aggressively arranging the desks to be perfectly aligned. Katsuki Bakugo was sitting with his feet up on one of said desks, looking at the ceiling with a scowl. Remove your foot from the desk. Ida chopped the air with his hand. It is disrespectful to the upperclassmen who use this furniture. Ha! Bakugo sneered. What junior high are you from, you extra? Izuku stepped inside. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Bakugo's head snapped toward the door. His eyes narrowed. Deku, Ida turned. Ah. You are the one from the entrance exam. The one who realized the hidden structure of the test. Ida marched over, hand extended. I am Tenya Ida, from Semi-Private Academy. Izuku looked at the hand. He gripped it firmly. Izuku Midoriya. Midoriya-kun. I must apologize. I misjudged you at the exam. I thought you were merely muttering to distract us, but you had perceived the true nature of the test while I was blinded by the surface rules. I hate to admit it, but you are the better candidate. You prioritize the written rules, Izuku said, releasing the hand. I prioritize the moral imperative. Neither is incorrect, depending on the objective. Ida blinked, confused by the lack of emotion in the response. Don't ignore me, you damn nerd! Bakugo was out of his seat. Smoke was curling from his palms. He stomped over to Izuku, getting right in his face. How the hell did you get in? Did you cheat? A quirkless loser like you can't. Izuku didn't step back. He didn't stutter. He looked at Bakugo's tie, noting it was tied loosely. I applied. I took the test. I passed, Izuku said, his voice monotone. Your confusion is irrelevant, Katsuki. Katsuki? Not Kaken. Bakugo froze. The nickname was gone. The fear was gone. It was like looking into a mirror and seeing no reflection. You wanna die? Bakugo whispered, a small explosion popping near Izuku's ear. Izuku didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. Using your quirk unauthorized in school grounds is a violation of Code 3, Section 4. You'll get suspended before orientation. Sit down. Izuku walked past him. He walked past the childhood bully, the source of 10 years of trauma, as if he were a piece of furniture. Bakugo stood there, trembling. Not with rage, but with a sudden, confusing chill. He's not scared. Why isn't he scared? Oh. It's you! Ochako Uraraka appeared at the door, beaming. The plain-looking boy. You got in. I wanted to thank you for saving me. Izuku found his seat, seat 18. He sat down and began organizing his pens. You're welcome, Uraraka-san. Your intervention with the debris prevented my terminal velocity impact. We are even. Even? Uraraka tilted her head. You're funny, Deku-kun. Serious, but funny. If you're here to make friends, pack up and leave. The voice came from the floor. The class froze. Lying in a yellow sleeping bag like a caterpillar was a man who looked like he hadn't slept in a decade. Shota Aizawa. He stood up, shedding the bag. It took you 8 seconds to quiet down. Time is limited. You kids are not rational enough. He pulled a gym uniform out of his bag. Put these on. Meet me on the P grounds. What about the ceremony? The guidance counselor meeting? Uraraka asked. If you want to be heroes, you don't have time for frilly niceties, Aizawa droned. Yui is about unrestrained freedom. That applies to the teachers as well. The P grounds were open and dusty. The sun beat down on the 20 students of Class 1A. Aizawa stood with a clipboard, looking bored. A quirk apprehension test, Aizawa announced. But we did this in middle school. A pink-skinned girl, Ashido, complained. We don't get to use our quirks. Rationality, Aizawa said. The country still insists on prohibiting quirks during physical fitness evaluations. It's illogical. He turned his dark eyes to Bakugo. Bakugo, you finished first in the entrance exam. How far could you throw a softball in middle school? 67 meters. Try it with your quirk. Bakugo grinned. This was his language. He stepped into the circle. He grabbed the ball. Dai! Boom! The blast sent a shockwave through the class. The ball vanished into the sky. Aizawa held up his device. 705.2 meters. Whoa! That looks like fun! Kaminari cheered. We can use our quirks as much as we want? Sero added. Izuku watched Aizawa. He saw the teacher's eyes narrow. The air pressure dropped. Fun? Aizawa whispered. You have 3 years to become heroes. You think it's going to be all fun and games? Aizawa smiled, a manic, terrifying expression. Right. Let's make this interesting. The student who ranks last in total points will be judged to have no potential and will be immediately expelled. The class erupted. Expelled? Uraraka cried. It's the first day. That's not fair. Natural disasters aren't fair, Aizawa countered. Villain attacks aren't fair. Calibration errors and rescue equipment aren't fair. Heroes are the ones who overturn those unfair situations. If you wanted to hang out at McDonald's after school, you're in the wrong place. Izuku stood silently in the back. Expulsion. High probability of a logical ruse to induce stress, he analyzed. However, Aizawa's file indicates he expelled an entire class of first years last year. The threat is credible. He looked at his classmates. They were panicking. Their heart rates were up. They were already losing. Panic wastes energy. Start the test, Izuku said quietly. Aizawa's eyes snapped to him. Problem child. You seem confident. Confidence is irrelevant, Izuku replied, adjusting his glove. We either perform, or we don't. Test 1, 50-meter dash. Ida vs. Ajiri. Ida used his engines. 3.04 seconds. Ajiri leaped. 5.58 seconds. Next. Midoriya. Bakugo. Izuku stepped to the line. Bakugo was vibrating with the need to crush him. I'm gonna leave you in the dust, Deku, Bakugo growled. Don't cry when you lose. Izuku ignored him. He got into a sprinter's crouch. One for all gives speed, but my control is binary. 0% or 100%. 100% on legs means shattered femurs. Result, mobility kill. Unacceptable. I must rely on the beach. Start. Bakugo blasted backward. Explosive speed. Izuku drove his legs into the dirt. No quirk. Just 10 months of dragging refrigerators through sand. His acceleration was explosive in its own right. His form was perfect. Bakugo crossed the line at 4.13 seconds. Izuku crossed at 5.51 seconds. Bakugo turned, expecting to see Izuku panting, crying, devastated. Izuku just checked the time. 0.2 seconds faster than my middle school record. Acceptable progress. He walked back to the line calm. Hey! Bakugo yelled. Why didn't you use your damn quirk? Inefficient for this distance, Izuku replied without stopping. Risk of self-injury outweighs the marginal time gain. Bakugo ground his teeth. He's mocking me. He thinks he doesn't need it to beat me. Test 2, grip strength. Shoji gripped the device. 540 kilograms. Izuku took the device. He squeezed. The metal groaned. No glowing veins. Just raw, hysterical strength cultivated by All Might's hellish regimen. 56 kilograms. Whoa, Midoriya! Kirishima grinned. You're strong for a small guy. Izuku nodded once. Grip is essential for capture. Test 3, standing long jump. Izuku cleared the sandbox using pure athleticism. Not the furthest. Bakugo flew over it. Oyama used his laser, but solidly in the upper middle pack. Test 4, repeated side steps. Izuku moved like a metronome. Left, right. His endurance was infinite. While Mineta panted and Sato slowed down, Izuku kept the exact same rhythm until the whistle blew. Test 5, the ball throw. This was it. The separator. Uraraka threw the ball. It floated. And floated. And floated. Infinity, Aizawa read, showing the device. Infinity? The class screamed. Midoriya, Aizawa called. You're up. Izuku walked to the circle. The class watched. They whispered. He hasn't used his quirk once, Ida noted. Why? Maybe he's saving it? Ajiri croaked. Or maybe he's a dud, Bakugo scoffed, though his eyes were glued to Izuku. Izuku held the ball. He ran the calculation. If I don't use one for all, my throw will be roughly 45 meters. That will place me in the bottom tier. With the other scores, that puts me in the danger zone for expulsion. I must use the quirk. Problem: using the quirk destroys the limb. Solution: minimize the destruction. Focus the energy. Not the whole arm. Just the tip of the finger. At the last moment of release, he winded up. He channeled the power. He could feel the lightning under his skin, one for all. 100%. He threw. Whoosh. The ball flew. 46 meters. Izuku stared at his hand. It wasn't broken. It also hadn't glowed. The power had vanished the instant he tried to release it. I erased your quirk. Izuku turned. Aizawa stood there, his hair floating, his scarf defying gravity. His eyes glowed red. That entrance exam was definitely not rational, Aizawa said, his voice dripping with disdain. Even if you have power, a guy like you who can't control it will only save one person and then become a useless doll. You'll be a liability in the field. The class was silent. Aizawa was dismantling him. You expect someone else to save you after you break yourself? Is that your plan? Aizawa closed the distance. Midoriya Izuku. You cannot be a hero with that power. Izuku looked at Aizawa. The erasure ended. Aizawa's hair fell. Usually, a student would tremble. They would stammer excuses. Izuku tilted his head. Liability, Izuku repeated. That is a variable based on the presence of support. If I act alone, and I break, and the villain is defeated, the mission is a success. Aizawa frowned. And then you die. Then I'd die, Izuku said simply. But the civilian lives. Aizawa felt a chill. This wasn't bravado. The kid meant it. However, Izuku continued, your assessment of my control is currently accurate. I cannot sustain output without damage. Therefore, Izuku turned back to the circle. He picked up the ball. I have to focus the damage. Aizawa watched him. He's not discouraged. He's adjusting his tactics. Izuku took a breath. He concentrated. He visualized the egg in the microwave not exploding. He visualized the power flowing like water, not a tsunami. He wound up. Focus. Right index finger. Just the tip. Smash. The air cracked. A sonic boom erupted from his hand. The ball shot into the stratosphere like a bullet, leaving a vapor trail. Snap. The pain was white-hot. His right index finger was purple, broken, swollen. Izuku didn't scream. He didn't clutch his hand. He slowly lowered his arm, breathing out through his nose. He turned to Aizawa. He held up his fist, the broken finger sticking out grotesquely. His face was a mask of cold challenge. I can still move, Izuku said, his voice steady. I have 9 fingers left. Are we done? Aizawa stared. The display beeped. 705.3 meters. 0.1 meters further than Bakugo. A slow, terrifying grin spread across Aizawa's face. This kid, he's crazy. But he's got guts. Humph, Aizawa scoffed. Not bad. The class exploded. He threw it over 700 meters. His finger is busted. That looks gross. He beat Bakugo. Bakugo stood frozen. His brain was short-circuiting. The pebble. The quirkless loser. He just outthrew him. He just used the quirk. DKU. The roar tore from Bakugo's throat. Logic vanished. Pure instinct took over. You bastard! Tell me what's going on. Bakugo launched himself at Izuku, explosions popping in his palms. He was going for the kill. Izuku saw him coming. Threat detected. Linear approach. Right hook charging. Izuku didn't back down. He didn't raise his hands in defense. He stepped forward. He lowered his center of gravity. Capture tape imminent, Izuku calculated, seeing Aizawa's scarf move. But if he reaches me first... Izuku prepared to drive his knee into Bakugo's solar plexus. He wasn't going to dodge. He was going to counterattack. Suddenly, the scarf wrapped around Bakugo, restraining him. Ack. What is this cloth? It's stiff. It's a capture weapon made of carbon fiber and a special metal alloy. Aizawa sighed, his eyes red again. Stand down. Don't make me use my quirk so much. I have dry eye. He glared at Bakugo. And you, Midoriya. Stop analyzing his weak points and preparing to rupture his spleen. We are in a school, not a war zone. Izuku relaxed his stance instantly. Understood. Self-defense protocols disengaged. Bakugo stared at Izuku. He saw it. Just for a second. Izuku hadn't been cowering. He had been waiting for Bakugo to get close enough to hurt. Whatever, Aizawa muttered, dropping Bakugo. Let's finish the sit-ups. The sun was setting. The test was over. The students gathered around the holographic display. Okay, here are the results, Aizawa said. By the way, the expulsion thing was a lie. Huh? The class screamed. It was a logical ruse to draw out your upper limits, Aizawa said, scratching his neck. I knew it, Yaoyorozu declared, clutching her chest. It was the only rational explanation. Izuku looked at the board. 1. Momo Yaoyorozu. 2. Shoto Todoroki. 3. Katsuki Bakugo. 6. Tenya Ida. 10. Izuku Midoriya. He was smack in the middle. His physical stats were high, but the lack of quirk use in the sprints and jumps dragged him down. But he wasn't last. Midoriya, Aizawa said. Izuku looked up. Go to the nurse. Get that finger fixed. Tomorrow brings your A game. The curriculum only gets harder. Yes, sensei. Izuku walked away. He passed Bakugo. Bakugo didn't yell. He stood there, vibrating with a silent, radioactive rage. He looked at the scoreboard. He looked at Izuku's back. He beat me, Bakugo thought. By 0.1 meters. He held back until the end. He's been hiding this. For years. He's been laughing at me. Izuku didn't look back. He didn't care about Bakugo's complex feelings. He looked at his broken finger. Output control successful at point of impact, he noted mentally. Next step, full call distribution at low percentage. I need to ask All Might about the sensation of spreading butter on toast. He walked toward the infirmary, leaving a class of confused, awed, and terrified students in his wake. The green soldier had arrived. And he wasn't slowing down for anyone. The sun had dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in bruises of purple and charcoal. On the P grounds of UA High, 20 students stood in the cooling twilight, their breaths visible in the evening air. Shota Aizawa, the erasure hero, had just dropped the bomb. By the way, the expulsion thing was a lie. The collective gasp of Class 1A sucked the oxygen out of the courtyard. It was a sound of relief, of shock, and of betrayal. It was a logical ruse, Aizawa continued, his face bored, scratching the stubble on his chin, to draw out the upper limits of your quirks. I knew it! Momo Yaoyorozu exhaled, clutching her chest, her knees shaking slightly despite her confident tone. It was the only rational explanation. To expel a student on the first day would be administratively inefficient, and a waste of potential resources. The class relaxed. Tension bled out of shoulders. Nervous laughter bubbled up from Denki Kaminari and Hanta Siro. Man, you really had us going, sensei. Kirishima grinned, wiping sweat from his forehead. That was supermanly acting. It was terrifying. Uraraka squeaked, slumping against Azuri. Izuku Midoriya did not laugh. He did not sigh in relief. He stood perfectly still, his broken finger throbbing with a dull, rhythmic cadence that matched his heartbeat. He stared at Aizawa. It wasn't a lie. Izuku's voice was not loud, but it cut through the chatter like a scalpel. The class fell silent. 19 heads turned to look at the boy with the green hair, and the eyes that looked like broken glass. Aizawa stopped scratching his neck. He turned his gaze slowly toward Izuku. Midoriya, you didn't lie, Izuku stated, his tone devoid of accusation, merely stating a fact. You are Eraserhead. I've read your file on the Underground Hero forums. Last year, you expelled your entire freshman class, 100% attrition rate. You labeled them as having zero potential. You don't make idle threats to motivate children. You make calculations. The air grew heavy again. Yaoyorozu looked from Izuku to Aizawa, her confidence wavering. But surely, he saw something today, Izuku continued, locking eyes with his teacher. He saw us pushing past our limits because we feared the consequences. That data changed the variable. If we had slacked off, if we had treated this like a game, we would be gone. The ruse was not the threat of expulsion. The ruse was the implication that you were bluffing. Aizawa stared at the boy. For a long, uncomfortable moment, the pro-hero said nothing. A small, dry smile tugged at the corner of his mouth, a smile that didn't reach his tired eyes. You're a sharp one, aren't you? Aizawa muttered. You have zero charm, but you have eyes. He turned his back on the class, picking up his sleeping bag. Take that insight with you. In the field, hesitation and misinterpretation of your enemy's intent gets you killed. Midoriya is right. I don't bluff. You all survived today. Don't expect to survive tomorrow. Aizawa trudged away, a dark silhouette against the fading light. Here are handouts with the curriculum syllabus. Take one and get out. Midoriya, go to Recovery Girl. The class stood frozen as the teacher disappeared. The relief was gone, replaced by a cold realization of just how close to the precipice they had walked. He really would have done it, Mineta whispered, shaking. That guy is hardcore, Kaminari gulped. Then, the attention shifted back to Izuku. He was already walking toward the pile of handouts. He picked one up with his good hand, scanning the document instantly. English. Math. Hero laws. Basic training. Lunch schedule. Hey, Midoriya. Kirishima approached him hesitantly. That was pretty intense, man. How did you know all that about him? Izuku didn't look up from the paper. Information is available if you look for it. Underground heroes avoid the media, but police reports and civil servant logs are public record if you know how to decrypt the archives. Decrypt? Kirishima blinked. Like hacking? Data retrieval, Izuku corrected smoothly. He finally looked up. His eyes swept over the class. They were looking at him differently now. Before the ball throw, he was the nervous, plain kid. During the throw, he was the powerful mystery. Now he was the cold analyst who frightened the teacher. I'm going to the infirmary, Izuku said. Don't block the path. The students parted. It wasn't out of respect, not yet. It was out of an instinctive need to give space to something dangerous. As Izuku walked past Bakugo, the blonde stood rigid. Bakugo didn't scream. He didn't explode. He was vibrating with a complex cocktail of rage and confusion. The Deku he knew, the pebble, the bug, would be crying right now. He would be celebrating that he wasn't expelled. But this Deku just walked by, analyzing a syllabus, nursing a broken finger as if it were a minor inconvenience like a loose shoelace. What did you do? Bakugo whispered, his voice low and guttural. Izuku paused. He didn't turn his head. I stopped waiting for permission to exist, Katsuki. He kept walking, leaving his childhood friend staring at a ghost. The infirmary was quiet. The hum of the air purifier was the only sound. Sit, Recovery Girl commanded. Izuku sat on the edge of the bed. He held out his hand. The finger was purple, swollen to twice its size. The bone was fractured in 3 places. Recovery Girl sighed, shaking her head. I saw the footage. You focused the power into a single point. Clever, but barbaric. It was necessary, Izuku said. It allowed me to meet the pass criteria without disabling my entire arm. And the pain? She asked, pursing her lips. Breaking a finger isn't like stubbing a toe, Sonny. It sends shockwaves up the nervous system. Most people would faint, or at least scream. I felt it, Izuku said. He watched as she puckered her lips. But pain is just a signal. It tells the brain that tissue damage has occurred. Once the signal is received and acknowledged, dwelling on it is inefficient. Recovery Girl kissed his forehead. Recipro burst. The green light washed over him. His stamina drained instantly. The heavy blanket of exhaustion slammed into him, trying to drag his eyelids down. The finger knitted itself back together, the purple bruising fading to a dull yellow. Izuku swayed but didn't fall. He gripped the edge of the bed, his knuckles white. You're exhausted, Recovery Girl noted. Go home. Sleep. Your body needs calories and rest. I have homework, Izuku mumbled, standing up. Syllabus review. Quirk interaction analysis for 19 classmates. Boy, Recovery Girl grabbed his wrist. Her grip was surprisingly strong. Listen to me. I have patched up All Might more times than I can count. He has the same look in his eyes that you do right now. The look of a man running toward a cliff because he thinks he can fly before he hits the bottom. Izuku looked down at her. All Might is the symbol of peace. He holds up the sky. If he rests, the sky falls. He is also a man with half a respiratory system because he didn't know when to stop. She snapped. Fear keeps you alive, Midoriya. It makes you duck. It makes you hesitate just enough to see the trap. If you kill your fear, You kill your survival instinct. Izuku gently pulled his wrist free. If I duck, Izuku said softly, someone behind me gets hit. I'd rather be the shield than the survivor. He bowed low. Thank you for the treatment. He left the room. Recovery girl watched him go, a shiver running down her spine. That boy, he isn't trying to be a hero. He's trying to be a weapon. The walk to the station was lonely. Usually, the first day of school was a time for bonding. Students walked in groups, exchanging numbers, complaining about teachers. Izuku walked alone. He had his headphones in, listening to a recording of a villain attack from 3 years ago, analyzing the audio cues of the villain's stress levels. Midoriya-kun! He didn't stop, but he slowed down as a hand touched his shoulder. He pulled an earbud out. Tenya Ida stood there, breathless, with Ochako Uraraka jogging to catch up. You walk very fast. Ida noted, adjusting his glasses. Efficiency is admirable, but social cohesion is also a vital part of the UA experience. Hey, Deku-kun! Uraraka beamed, though she looked a little wary. Is your finger okay? That looked super painful. It is healed, Izuku said. Recovery girl is effective. They fell into step beside him. The dynamic was awkward. Ida and Uraraka were trying to fit Izuku into the box of classmate, but Izuku was shaped all wrong, so Uraraka started, trying to break the ice. That was scary, huh? Aizawa-sensei. I really thought we were gonna get kicked out. He is a rational deceptionist, Ida nodded. It makes sense. Yue is the top. They have to weed out the weak. He wasn't weeding out the weak, Izuku said, staring straight ahead. He was weeding out the comfortable. Uraraka blinked. The comfortable? Heroism is a job where you see dead bodies, Izuku said casually, as if discussing the weather. You see people screaming. You see limbs missing. If you are comfortable, if you treat it like a high school club, you freeze when the blood starts flowing. Aizawa wanted to see who would freeze. Uraraka went pale. Ida stiffened. That is a very grim way to look at it, Midoriya-kun, Ida said. It is the reality, Izuku replied. We aren't training to sign autographs. We are training to fight monsters. He stopped at the station entrance. My train is this way. Oh. Ours too, Uraraka said. Let's ride together. Izuku looked at them. He analyzed them. Uraraka Ochako. Motivated by financial insecurity. Empathetic. Optimistic. Naive. Ida Tenya. Legacy admission. Motivated by family honor. Rigid. Rule-bound. They were bright. They were hopeful. They were everything Izuku used to be before the sludge villain, before the realization. I have to review my notes, Izuku said. I am not good company right now. We don't mind. Uraraka insisted. I do, Izuku said. It wasn't mean. It was just blunt. Distraction reduces retention rates. I need to be better than I was today. Excuse me? He swiped his pass and walked through the turnstile, disappearing into the crowd of commuters. Uraraka and Ida stood there, watching him go. He's intense, Uraraka whispered. He is focused, Ida corrected, though he looked troubled. Perhaps too focused. It is as if he is fighting a war that only he can see. From the shadows of a nearby vending machine, Katsuki Bakugo watched the interaction. He crushed the empty soda can in his hand until the aluminum tore his skin. He's looking down on them too, Bakugo thought, his teeth grinding. He thinks he's above everyone. He thinks he's all might. I'll kill him. I'll kill him and show him where a pebble belongs. The next day, UA High was a gauntlet. The morning classes were standard education, but at an elite level. English with present mic, math with ectoplasm. Modern literature with cementas. Most students struggled to adjust to the pace. Izuku Midoriya devoured it. In English, when present mic asked for the grammatical structure of the passive participle, Izuku's hand shot up with the speed of a striking cobra. The passive participle modifies the subject by indicating an action received rather than performed, Izuku recited. It is often used in legal documents and incident reports to maintain objectivity. All right on. Present mic shouted, sweating slightly behind his shades. Very specific example, listener. In math, Izuku solved the calculus problems before ectoplasm finished writing them on the board. He didn't look smug. He just stared at the board, waiting for the next problem, his leg bouncing with impatient energy. Dude, Kaminari whispered to Jiraiya. He's a machine. Does he even blink? I think I saw him blink once, Jiraiya whispered back, twirling her earphone jack. But it might have been a glitch. Lunch was the only reprieve. The cafeteria was loud, filled with the smell of lunch rush's gourmet cooking. Izuku sat at a table in the corner. He had a bowl of katsudon, but he was eating it mechanically. Spoon, mouth, chew, swallow. No savoring. In his other hand, a notebook was open. Class 1A Quirk Analysis. Oyama Yuga, Naval Laser. Refractive Properties. Limit, Stomach Upset. Weakness, Sustained Fire. Strategy, Mirror Shield or Mirrored Capture Tape. Ashido Mina, Acid. Viscosity Variable. Solubility Variable. Weakness, Base Neutralizing Agents. Strategy, Water Dilution or Range Containment. Is this seat taken? Izuku didn't look up. It is a free country, Todoroki-san. Shoto Todoroki sat down across from him. The boy with the split hair, white and red, ate his soba in silence. He radiated a cold aura that kept others away. Izuku continued writing. You have a strong quirk, Todoroki said suddenly. His voice was flat, bored. Izuku paused his pen. It has high output. Control is currently suboptimal. You broke your finger to throw a ball, Todoroki said. And you didn't react. Are you a masochist? I am a pragmatist, Izuku replied, finally looking up. Todoroki's eyes were heterochromatic, gray and blue. They were cold, but there was a fire of hatred deep within the left side. All Might seems to have taken an interest in you, Todoroki observed. He is the teacher of foundational hero studies, Izuku deflected. He has an interest in the class. No. It's different with you. Todoroki slurped a noodle. I'm going to beat you, Izuku blinked. Okay, Todoroki frowned. He expected defiance. He expected fear. I will show you that I don't need his power to be the best. I will beat you with just my right side. Izuku analyzed the statement. Rejection of fire. Parental issue likely. Endeavor is his father. Endeavor is the perpetual number 2. Resentment hypothesis. High. Limiting your arsenal based on emotional trauma is illogical, Izuku said. Todoroki froze. The air around him dropped 10 degrees. Frost began to creep across the table. What did you say? If you have a tool, use it, Izuku said, returning to his notebook. If a villain is burning down an orphanage, and your ice isn't enough, will you let them die because you have daddy issues? The silence at the table was deafening. Todoroki stood up slowly. His left side was trembling, not with fire, but with rage. You don't know anything about me. I know you're holding back, Izuku said, turning a page. And people who hold back get people killed. Enjoy your soba. Todoroki stared at him for another second, then turned and walked away, the frost on the table lingering as a testament to his anger. From 3 tables away, Uraraka watched. Did Deku-kun just pick a fight with the scariest guy in class? I think he just psychoanalyzed him and insulted him simultaneously, Ida marveled. He has no social fear either. Hero basic training. The afternoon sun was blazing. I am here. All Might burst through the door in his Silver Age costume, striking a pose that defied anatomy. Coming through the door like a normal person. It's All Might. Look at that costume. So retro. Izuku watched him. Entrance angle, 90 degrees. Volume, 120 decibels. Purpose, morale boost and intimidation of potential threats. Foundational hero studies. All Might bellowed. For this class, we'll be building your hero foundation through various trials. Let's jump right in with this, the battle trial. He pressed a button, and the wall shelved out, revealing numbered suitcases. And to go with that, your costumes. The class cheered. This was the moment. The transition from student to hero. Izuku stood up. He walked to slot 18. He picked up his case. It was heavy. Get changed and meet me at ground beta. The locker room was a flurry of activity. Boys were comparing gadgets, flexing, laughing. Check this out. Aoyama showed off his cape. It sparkles, non? Dude, my belt has grenades. Bakugo grinned savagely, strapping his gauntlets on. Izuku stood in the corner. He opened his case. He pulled out the green jumpsuit. It was a darker shade than his original sketch. The material wasn't spandex. It was a reinforced Kevlar weave, resistant to abrasions and minor cuts. He pulled on the boots. They were heavy, steel-toed, with magnetic soles for stability. He strapped on the elbow and knee pads. They were black, industrial, scarred with purpose. Then the mask. His mother had bought him a cute bunny jumpsuit when he was a kid. He had wanted to honor that. He had wanted to honor All Might's hair tufts, but he had modified the design. The ears were longer, streamlined, housing radio antennas. The mask itself was not a cloth hood. It was a respirator, covering the lower half of his face, filtering out smoke and toxins. The eye holes were covered by a polarized green visor that offered HUD data, a gift from a support company he had contacted online, paid for with money saved from skipping meals. He put the respirator on. It clicked and hissed. He pulled the hood up. He didn't look like a rabbit. He looked like a hazard. He walked out into the tunnel. The class was gathered at ground beta. They looked like a colorful parade. Capes, bright colors, flashy gadgets. Whoa, Uraraka! You look great, Ida complimented. Uraraka was blushing, trying to cover her tight suit. It's a bit tight. She laughed. Looking good, embryos. All Might cheered. Now where is, footsteps echoed from the tunnel. Heavy. Deliberate. Izuku stepped into the light. The class went quiet. His suit was utilitarian. Dark green and black. The respirator hid his expression. The visor reflected the sunlight, hiding his eyes. The red utility belt was bulky, filled with pouches. He looked less like a superhero and more like a tactical response unit sent to liquidate a threat. Young Midoriya. All Might blinked. That is quite the change from your sketch. Izuku pressed a button on his neck, disengaging the voice modulator so he could speak clearly. The sketch was idealistic. This is practical. You look scary, Deku, Uraraka said, shivering slightly. Like, really scary. Fear is a tool, Izuku said. If the villain is afraid, they make mistakes. Bakugo stared at the costume. It mocked him. It wasn't the goofy Deku he knew. It was professional. Right. All Might clapped his massive hands. Here is the situation. The villains have hidden a nuclear weapon somewhere in the hideout. The heroes must try to dispose of it or capture the villains within the time limit. The villains must protect the weapon or capture the heroes. He held up a box. Teams will be determined by lots. Izuku watched the drawing. Probability suggests I will be paired with someone whose quirk complements mine poorly to test adaptability. Team A. All Might announced. Izuku Midoriya and Ochako Uraraka. Uraraka beamed. Yay! We're a team, Deku-kun. Izuku nodded. Gravity manipulation offers verticality. Good. Team D. All Might pulled the balls. Katsuki Bakugo and Tenya Ida. Izuku froze. His head turned slowly toward Bakugo. Bakugo was grinning. It was a shark's grin. A predator who just smelled blood in the water. The first match will be. All Might reached into the boxes. Team A are the heroes. Team D are the villains, the class muttered. Destiny, Tokoyami whispered. This is gonna be bad, Kirishima said. Bakugo wants to murder him. All Might looked at Izuku. Everyone else, head to the monitoring room. Team D, go set up. Team A, you have 5 minutes to plan your entry. Bakugo walked past Izuku. He leaned in, his grenade gauntlet clicking against Izuku's shoulder pad. I'm gonna hurt you, Bakugo whispered. I'm gonna hurt you so bad they'll have to carry you out in a bucket. No teachers can save you in there. Izuku didn't flinch. His visor stared back, emotionless. Don't worry about the weapon, Katsuki, Izuku said, his voice amplified slightly by the mask. Worry about your breath. Bakugo snarled and stomped off with Ida. The strategy session. Izuku and Uraraka stood outside the building. It was a concrete, brutalist structure. 5 stories. Uraraka was shaking. He really hates you, Deku-kun. Maybe we should just try to sneak around him? Izuku was studying the blueprints provided by All Might. Sneaking is impossible, Izuku said. Bakugo will hunt me. He will abandon the objective to engage me. That is his psychological profile. He is arrogant and driven by ego. So, what do we do? Uraraka asked, looking at the map. Ida will be guarding the bomb. He's fast. Izuku folded the map. He turned to Uraraka. He reached up and pulled his respirator down, showing his face. He wasn't smiling. He was deadly serious. Uraraka-san. Do you trust me? Ah, yes. Of course. Then listen carefully. Bakugo is the primary threat, but he is also the primary flaw. I will draw his fire. I will engage him. But he's strong. And you break yourself when you fight. I won't break myself to fight him, Izuku said. I will break him mentally. He pointed to the 5th floor on the map. Ida is diligent. He will clear the room of loose objects to counter your zero gravity. He will expect you to come from the door or window. He will not expect you to come from the floor. The floor? I will engage Bakugo on the lower levels. I will use his rage against him. When the moment is right, I will create a vertical breach. You will use that chaos to secure the weapon. Izuku put his mask back on. The hiss of the seal was final. We aren't playing heroes and villains, Izuku said, his voice metallic and cold. We are executing a raid. Violence of action. Speed. Surprise. No hesitation. Uraraka swallowed hard. She looked at the boy in the green armor. He wasn't the stuttering mess she met at the gate. He was a commander. Okay, she said, putting on her helmet. Let's do this. Indoor battle trial. Start. All Might's voice boomed over the speakers. Izuku didn't run in yelling. He kicked the door open and slid into the shadows of the hallway. The hunt was on. Inside the building, Bakugo stood on the 2nd floor. He wasn't guarding the bomb. He was pacing. Bakugo-kun. Ida's voice crackled over the radio. Where are you? We should fortify the 5th floor. The hero team will likely. Shut up, Four Eyes, Bakugo growled, clicking his radio off. I'm gonna crush him. He stood in the middle of the main corridor. He waited. He listened. Come on, Deku. Come and face me. Clack. A sound. Around the corner. Bakugo didn't hesitate. He launched himself around the corner, right hand primed. Dai. He fired a massive explosion, filling the hallway with smoke and fire. Gotcha! Bakugo yelled. The smoke cleared. Nothing. Just a scorched wall. What? Clack. Behind him, Bakugo spun around. Izuku was crouching on the ceiling, holding onto a pipe with one hand, his green eyes glowing through the smoke. You're too loud, the metallic voice whispered. Before Bakugo could raise his other hand, Izuku dropped. He didn't use one for all. He used gravity. He slammed his steel-toed boots onto Bakugo's shoulders, driving the blonde into the concrete floor. Bakugo gasped, the wind knocked out of him. Izuku backflipped off, landing in a combat crouch 5 meters away. He pulled a roll of capture tape from his belt. Target located, Izuku said into his comms. Engaging. Bakugo scrambled up, coughing, his eyes wide with fury. You! Come on, Kaken, Izuku said, opening his arms. Let's see if you can hit a ghost. The predator had found his prey. The corridor on the 2nd floor of the battle building was filled with the acrid scent of nitroglycerin and charred concrete. Dust motes danced in the shafts of sunlight cutting through the blown-out windows, swirling in the wake of violence. Katsuki Bakugo scrambled to his feet. His vision swam for a fraction of a second, a result of the concussive force of being slammed into the floor by steel-toed boots dropped from the ceiling. His breath hitched, his lungs burning, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the shock rattling his psyche. He jumped me. Bakugo spun around, palms crackling, eyes wild. DKU. Izuku Midoriya stood 5 meters away. He was in a low combat crouch, his green armored suit looking dark and militaristic in the shadows. The respirator mask covered the lower half of his face, and the polarized visor hid his eyes, turning him into a faceless machine. Target reacquired. Izuku's voice came through the mask's modulator. It was stripped of humanity, flattened into a metallic rasp. Heart rate elevated. Stance wide? You're angry, Katsuki. Anger makes you sloppy. Shut up! Bakugo roared. Don't you look down on me! Bakugo lunged. He didn't think, he just acted. He closed the distance with a burst of explosions from his palms, propelling himself forward like a missile. It was his signature move, fast, terrifying, and usually unstoppable. He swung his right arm, a massive hook aimed directly at Izuku's masked face. Right hook, Izuku's mind processed instantly. He leads with the right 84% of the time when enraged. Excessive wind-up. Center of gravity shifted forward. In the observation room, the students of Class 1A gasped. To them, it looked like Bakugo was about to take Izuku's head off, but to Izuku, Bakugo was moving in slow motion. Izuku didn't dodge backward. That was what victims did. Victims tried to create distance. Predators closed it. Izuku stepped inside the swing. He ducked under the explosion, the heat singeing the top of his cowl. His left hand shot up, grabbing Bakugo's forearm. His right hand clamped onto the fabric of Bakugo's costume near the shoulder. Leverage, Izuku whispered. Using Bakugo's own forward momentum against him, Izuku pivoted on his heel. He dropped his hips, loading the weight, and executed a flawless suinage, a shoulder throw. The world flipped for Bakugo. One moment he was the unstoppable force. The next, he was staring at the ceiling as his back slammed into the concrete with a bone-rattling crack. Gah! The air left Bakugo's lungs in a wheezing gasp. Izuku didn't pause to gloat. He didn't stand over him and lecture. He followed the momentum, driving his knee into Bakugo's stomach to pin him, then immediately rolled backward, creating distance again before Bakugo could detonate a point-blank blast. Izuku stood up, brushing dust off his knee pads. You telegraph your attacks, Izuku stated, tilting his head slightly. The mechanical hiss of his respirator filled the silence. You rely on the explosion to intimidate. You expect the flinch. I don't flinch. Bakugo lay on the floor, staring up at the green figure. His brain was trying to process the impossibility of the situation. Deku was a pebble. A bug? Bugs don't know judo. Bugs don't talk like robots. You! Bakugo growled, forcing himself up. His hands were shaking. You've been reading me? You've been analyzing me? I have 13 notebooks detailing your combat patterns, Izuku replied. You haven't changed your opening moves since you were 5. Did you think I was writing fanfiction? Bakugo screamed. It was a raw, primal sound of frustration. He fired a massive explosion at the floor, creating a smokescreen, and dashed into the side room. I'm gonna kill you! Izuku stood in the hallway as the smoke billowed around him. He touched his earpiece. Uraraka-san. Status? I am on the 4th floor. Uraraka's voice was shaky. I heard the explosions. Are you okay? I am uninjured. The target has disengaged and is attempting to flank. Proceed to the objective. Do not engage Ida yet. Wait for my signal. Roger. Izuku looked at the darkness of the side room where Bakugo had vanished. He didn't chase blindly. He checked the schematics on his HUD. Corridors create choke points. He wants me to follow so he can blast me in a confined space. Izuku turned and walked the other way, melting into the shadows. If you want to hunt a beast, you don't chase it. You let it trap itself. Observation room. The silence among the students was heavy. Whoa, Eijiro Kirishima breathed, leaning forward. Did you see that throw? That was clean. No quirk, just pure skill. He's reading Bakugo like a book, Tsuyu Ajui noted, her finger on her chin. It's scary, Karo. Bakugo is strong, but Midoriya acts like he's bored. All Might stood at the console, gripping the microphone stand so hard the metal was beginning to warp. He watched the screen showing Izuku disappearing into the stairwell. Young Midoriya. All Might thought, sweat beading on his forehead. You aren't fighting to win a spar. You are dismantling him. There is no joy in your movement. Only efficiency. Is it just me, Denki Kaminari whispered to Hantashiro, or does Midoriya look more like the villain right now? I mean, look at him. The mask, the glowing eyes, the creeping around. He's taking it seriously, Momo Yayorozu interjected, though she looked unsettled. He has assessed that Bakugo is a volatile threat, and is neutralizing him psychologically before committing to a physical takedown. It is ruthless, but highly effective. On the screen, Bakugo was tearing through the rooms, blasting doors off their hinges. Where are you? Bakugo screamed at an empty room. Stop hiding, DKU! The audio picked up a sound. A soft, metallic tapping coming from the ventilation ducts. Bakugo spun around, blasting the ceiling. Debris rained down. Empty. He's playing with him, Minoru Mineta whimpered. He's a ghost. The hunt. Bakugo was breathing hard. Sweat dripped down his nose, mixing with the soot on his face. He was on the 3rd floor now. Every shadow looked like Deku. Every creak of the building sounded like those heavy boots. Come out! Bakugo yelled, his voice cracking. Face me. Use your damn quirk. Scritch. The sound came from behind a stack of crates in the corner of the storage room. Bakugo grinned maniacally. Found you. He launched himself over the crates, right hand primed for a lethal blast. Nothing. Just a small, green radio taped to the back of a crate. Looking for someone? Izuku's voice crackled from the radio. Bakugo froze. You're hyperfixated, the voice continued, calm and lecturing. You entered the room and didn't check your corners. You went straight for the noise. That makes you predictable, Katsuki. Where are you? Bakugo crushed the radio in his hand, detonating a small explosion. Above you. Bakugo looked up too late. Izuku dropped from the lighting rig. He didn't strike this time. He landed behind Bakugo, silent as a cat. Bakugo spun, swinging a backhand explosion. Izuku ducked under it effortlessly. As he moved, he slapped a strip of capture tape onto Bakugo's back. Too slow, Izuku whispered. He vanished again, rolling through the doorway and disappearing into the hall before Bakugo could recover from the swing. Bakugo reached behind him, tearing the tape off. He stared at the white strip in his hand. It was a warning. I could have captured you. I chose not to. Stop mocking me. Bakugo's rage was evolving. It was no longer just anger, it was fear. Fear that everything he believed, that he was the best, the strongest, the chosen one, was a lie. Fear that the boy he had tormented for a decade was actually the one looking down on him. Bakugo sprinted into the hallway. I'll blow this whole damn building up if I have to. Izuku watched from the shadows of the stairwell, his HUD tracking Bakugo's erratic heat signature. Psychological destabilization at 70%, Izuku noted. He is losing cohesion. His attacks are becoming wider, less precise. He is burning stamina. Izuku touched his earpiece. Uraraka. Position? I'm outside the weapon room, she whispered. Ida is, talking to himself. A lot. Good. Hold position. The target is moving toward the central pillar. I will intercept him there. Once the floor breaks, you move. Floor breaks? Deku-kun, what are you planning? A forced error, Izuku replied. The confrontation. The central room of the 4th floor was a wide, open space supported by thick concrete pillars. It was the only straight path to the stairs leading to Ida and the bomb. Bakugo stood in the center, panting. He looked like a cornered animal. His eyes darted around. Izuku stepped out from behind a pillar. He didn't hide this time. He stood in the open, 20 meters away. Done running? Bakugo spat, straightening up. I wasn't running, Izuku said, walking forward slowly. I was positioning. You think you're so smart, Bakugo hissed. He raised his right arm. His other hand reached for the pin on his grenade-shaped gauntlet. You think you can just analyze me and win? You think your little tricks work against raw power? Izuku stopped. His HUD flashed a warning. High energy signature detected. All Might said these are stored sweat, Bakugo said, a dark grin spreading across his face. If they're full, and I pull this pin. Bakugo, stop. All Might's voice boomed over the speakers in the building. You'll kill him. Do not use that attack indoors. He won't die if he dodges. Bakugo screamed back at the ceiling. He pulled the pin. Time seemed to suspend. Izuku saw the mechanism release. He saw the spark. Blast radius. Estimated 10 meters width, 40 meters length, Izuku calculated instantly. Velocity, supersonic. Options, A. Dodge into the side room. Survival chance, 100%. Consequence, the blast wave travels down the hall, potentially hitting the structural supports of the 5th floor. Uraraka is directly above. Risk of floor collapse under her. High. B. Use one for all to counterblast. Consequence. Collateral damage to the building could fail the mission. C. Take it. Fear would dictate option A. Self-preservation would scream for option A. Izuku didn't have fear. He lowered his stance. He brought his arms up in a cross block. He shifted 5% of one for all into his arms, not enough to break them, but enough to reinforce the bone density and muscle fibers. Eat this. The explosion was blinding. A torrent of fire and force erupted from the gauntlet, consuming the corridor. It tore up the floor tiles, shattered the windows, and engulfed the green figure standing in its path. In the observation room, the class screamed, "Midoriya!" Uraraka cried out over the comms. He didn't dodge!" Kirishima yelled, grabbing the railing. "Why didn't he dodge?" The smoke filled the screen. The building groaned. Bakugo stood panting, his arm numb from the recoil. He stared at the swirling black smoke. "I told you." Bakugo wheezed, a flicker of regret crossing his face for the first time. "I told you to dodge." The smoke began to clear. Bakugo's eyes widened. Standing in the center of the scorched path, surrounded by blackened concrete, was Izuku. His costume was shredded. The sleeves were burned away. His left arm was a mess of burns and bruising, the skin red and angry. His respirator was cracked, half of it hanging off, revealing a bleeding cut on his cheek. But he was standing. Izuku lowered his arms. Smoke curled off his skin. He looked at his damaged arm, flexed the fingers, and winced slightly. "Is that it?" Izuku asked. Bakugo took a step back. "No. No way." Izuku looked up. His green eyes were piercing, unclouded by the pain. "That was your strongest move," Izuku said, taking a step forward. The sound of his boot hitting the debris echoed like a gunshot. "You relied on it. You thought it would end the fight. You banked everything on fear. Stay back." Bakugo fired a smaller explosion, but his hand was shaking too much. It went wide. Izuku kept walking. He walked through the lingering flames. He looked like a demon rising from hell. "You're afraid, Katsuki," Izuku said, closing the distance. "You're afraid because for the first time in your life, the explosion didn't make the problem go away." "Shut up!" Bakugo launched himself, screaming, throwing a desperate left hook. Izuku didn't use judo this time. He cocked his right fist. The red veins of One for All ignited, glowing brightly through the tattered fabric of his glove. "One for all. 100%. I'm not the pebble anymore," Izuku roared. But he didn't aim at Bakugo. At the last microsecond, Izuku ducked under Bakugo's desperate swing. He stepped past him. He punched the ceiling. Detroit. Smash! The impact was cataclysmic. The air pressure condensed and exploded upward. The concrete ceiling didn't just crack, it vaporized. The force blasted through the fourth floor, punching a massive hole straight through to the fifth floor above. Bakugo was thrown backward by the shockwave, tumbling across the room. The fifth floor. Ida was guarding the weapon, monologuing to himself about the nature of villainy, when the floor beneath him disintegrated. "What in the name of?" Ida stumbled back as the room filled with dust and debris. The floor was gone. A massive crater separated him from the weapon. "Now, Uraraka!" Izuku's voice cut through the chaos on the comms. Uraraka, who had been waiting by the door, saw her chance. The explosion had thrown Ida off balance, and filled the room with floating debris. "Right." She touched a concrete pillar section that had been blasted loose. "Light." She swung the massive pillar like a baseball bat. "Home run comet!" She smacked the debris toward Ida. "Impudent hero!" Ida yelled, raising his arms to block the projectile. But it was a distraction. While Ida dealt with the flying rock, Uraraka engaged her boots and leaped. She soared over the gap created by Izuku's smash. "Release!" She pressed her fingertips together. She regained her weight in midair, dropping directly onto the papier-mâché nuclear weapon. "Captured!" Uraraka screamed, hugging the bomb. The fourth floor. The dust was settling. Izuku stood amidst the rubble, his right arm hanging limp at his side. It was purple, broken, useless. The sleeve was gone. Bakugo was lying on his back near the wall. He wasn't unconscious, but he was staring blankly at the hole in the ceiling. The buzzer sounded. "Hero team wins!" All Might's voice announced, though it lacked its usual vigor. It sounded shaken. Izuku let out a long breath. The adrenaline was fading, and the pain was arriving like a freight train. His right arm was broken. His left arm was second-degree burned. His ribs ached. He walked over to Bakugo. Bakugo didn't move. He just stared up at Izuku. Why? Bakugo whispered. His voice was broken. Why didn't you use that power on me? You could have killed me. Izuku looked down at him. The broken half of his mask fell off, clattering to the floor. His face was bruised, covered in soot, but his expression was eerily calm. Because beating you wasn't the objective, Izuku said. Winning was. He pulled a roll of capture tape from his belt with his good hand, the burned one, and dropped it onto Bakugo's chest. You were fighting a duel, Katsuki? I was fighting a war. Izuku turned and began to walk toward the exit. He took 3 steps before his legs gave out. The recoil, the burns, the exhaustion, it all caught up. He collapsed face first into the dust. Midoriya! Uraraka's voice cried out from the hole above. The debriefing. The infirmary smelled of antiseptic again. Izuku sat on the bed. His right arm was in a cast. His left arm was bandaged heavily. A burn patch was on his cheek. Recovery girl was fuming. I should have you expelled, she yelled, hitting his good leg with her cane. You broke your arm again. And you stood in front of an explosion. Are you suicidal? The blast was survivable, Izuku said, his voice raspy. I protected my vitals. The armor absorbed 40% of the thermal energy, and the other 60% cooked your skin. She snapped. You are not a tank, Midoriya. You are a boy. I won, Izuku said softly. The door opened. All Might entered, followed by the rest of Class 1A. They had insisted on seeing him. Midoriya! Uraraka rushed in, tears in her eyes. You idiot! You scared me to death. Ida chopped the air. Midoriya-kun! While your tactics were successful, your disregard for your own well-being is deeply concerning. As class representative, wait, we haven't elected one yet. As a concerned classmate, I must protest. Izuku looked at them. He saw concern. He saw fear. I'm fine, he said. Young Midoriya. All Might stepped forward. He looked serious. We reviewed the match. He gestured to the monitor on the wall. Young Yaoyorozu had some insightful comments. Momo stepped forward, looking uncomfortable. Midoriya-san. Your strategy was brilliant. You dismantled Bakugo psychologically. You used the environment perfectly. You coordinated with Uraraka-san flawlessly. She paused. But your method was terrifying. You acted without any regard for self-preservation. You baited an attack that could have killed you just to prove a point. A hero saves people, yes, but a hero also has to survive to save the next person. If you die in the first fight, you fail everyone you could have saved later. The room was silent. Izuku looked at Momo. His eyes were dull, unrepentant. If I had dodged, Izuku said quietly, the blast would have hit the support pillar behind me. Structural integrity would have been compromised. The floor beneath Uraraka-san might have collapsed. She could have fallen 2 stories. Momo blinked. You calculated that? In the moment, yes, Izuku lied. Or maybe he didn't. It was hard to tell where the calculation ended and the instinct began. Taking the hit was the only variable that guaranteed her safety. He looked at his bandaged hands. I am the weapon, Izuku murmured, almost too quiet to hear. The weapon breaks so the wielder doesn't have to. The class exchanged looks. Kirishima looked uneasy. Bro, that's kinda dark. Where is Bakugo? Izuku asked, changing the subject. He went home, Uraraka said softly. He didn't say anything. He just looked, empty. The aftermath. Outside the school gates, the sun was setting. Bakugo walked alone. He wasn't screaming. He wasn't kicking trash cans. He was replaying the fight in his head. Over and over. The judo throw. The voice in the dark. The figure walking through the fire. I was afraid, Bakugo thought, his hands trembling in his pockets. I was terrified. He stopped. He looked at his hands. He looked down on me because I was afraid. He didn't use his power on me because I wasn't worth it. He beat me without it. Tears pricked his eyes. Hot, angry tears. DKU, he screamed at the empty street. I'm not done. I'll kill you. I'll surpass you. Do you hear me? But there was no answer. Only the wind, and the lingering memory of green eyes that held absolutely no fear of him at all. Izuku's room. Izuku sat at his desk, staring at his burned notebook. His arm throbbed. Recovery girl hadn't fully healed him this time. She said he needed to learn a lesson about pain. He opened a new page. Combat analysis. Battle trial. Subject, Katsuki Bakugo. Status, neutralized. Notes, intimidation factor significantly reduced. Threat level downgraded from impossible to manageable. He wrote quickly, his left hand clumsy but functional. Subject, Izuku Midoriya. Status, broken. Notes, pain tolerance increasing. Fear response, non-existent. He stopped writing. He looked at the All Might poster on his wall. The hero was smiling. Izuku tried to smile. He looked in the mirror. The smile didn't reach his eyes. It looked like a baring of teeth. A predator's mimicry of joy. I am here, Izuku whispered to the empty room. He turned off the lamp, plunging the room into darkness. In the dark, he didn't have to pretend to be a boy. In the dark, he could just be the machine that waited for the next fight. The death of hesitation was complete. The birth of the predator was absolute. And somewhere, in the shadows of the city, the true villains were beginning to stir, unaware that the hero training to stop them wasn't coming to save them, or himself. He was coming to break them.